folks. Welcome to Typology, the show in which we explore the mystery of the human personality through the lens of the Enneagram. My name is Anthony Skinner, the producer of the show. We're really happy to have you all join us today. Hey, don't forget to check out that Ora Bora drink. We talked about that 2 episodes ago with Paul and Maddie Vogie. I don't get paid anything extra to mention that. I just love the drink. So there you go. Hey, our guest today is a bit of a newcomer to the Enneagram. Talking about Jordan Lee Dooley. She's a national best-selling author, speaker, founder, and CEO of Own It Academy, and of course, the host of She, a top-rated podcast for women. As I said, a bit of a newcomer. Think she's a 3 coming into the program, so we pick up there, and really grateful. She gets right into it midway through the podcast and gets really vulnerable about one of her most challenging struggles. We always appreciate when our guests share their struggles because, of course, it enlightens the rest of us as we are on our journey and helps us know that we are not alone. And speaking of that, you are not alone today, and we are so happy and honored that you are inviting us into your world via this podcast. So without any further ado, that's it for me, Anthony Skinner. Let's join our guest, Jordan Lee Dooley, and the host of our show, Ian Cron.
Jordan Lee Dooley, welcome to Typology.
Thank you. It's so fun to be here. Excited to chat.
Yeah, me too. I've been looking forward to our conversation. You are an Enneagram 3, the performer, and I'm curious to know what your history is with the Enneagram.
It's minor. I'm a kind of person who, if someone tells me you are this or you are that, it makes me feel like I'm in a box. And so I don't like it. And so I've always been skeptical of anything that feels like a personality test, but I've read a little bit about it and just learned from some friends more. They pretty much just have coached me through it in conversation. But honestly, I feel like I'm a toddler at this. So I'm excited to get to chat and learn more from you too.
Great. And so what book did you read about it?
I read The Road Back to You.
Oh, you did?
Yes.
Oh, well, we're already friends.
Great. Okay.
We're already friends. From one author to another, we're already friends. Fantastic. So tell me, how did you feel when you read the description of the Enneagram 3 in the book?
So that's a good question. I think I felt seen, and I also felt weird because it's never fun. I've talked to several different friends about this, and they say women, especially Christian women, sometimes feel a little uncomfortable when something kind of straight up lays out like, hey, you're an achiever and you can be a performer. It doesn't sound very nice. It doesn't sound very warm and fuzzy. And at first I was like, ooh, I should probably feel bad about that. But then after 5 seconds, I was like, nah, it's accurate.
Well, I think that in the beginning, because the Enneagram reveals what's best about you is what's worst about you, and that's what's worst about you is also what's best about you.
Yes, that's what I felt. I was like, this is crazy. It's like my strength can also be my downfall in the same way.
Totally.
Yeah.
It totally can be. And so what happens is in the beginning of your journey with the Enneagram, and I get this a lot at workshops, right? People are like, I don't know, this sounds so negative, right? And I'm like, because it reveals sort of the shadow aspect of your personality. And before you can get to the bright stuff, you kind of have to move through the shadow stuff.
Right.
So I've had people cry at workshops. Sometimes I laugh and I go, I can make you cry because literally sometimes, it really hits a nerve with people, but it's also revelatory for them. They go, now this makes sense. Mm-hmm. Now I understand, right? Yeah. So do you know what your wing is? You're a 3.
I have no idea. I've never really understood the whole wing thing at all. So I need to be diagnosed is what I've decided.
Awesome. Let's do that.
Okay.
Let me explain it to you real fast. Your wing is one of the 2 numbers that are adjacent to your main type. So you're a 3, right? That means you could have a 4 wing or you could have a 2 wing. Okay.
Yep.
And how the 3 with a 2 wing shows up in the world is very different from how a 3 with a 4 wing shows up in the world. Mm-hmm. All right. Now, your wing seasons your main wing. So let's say you're a 3 with a 2 wing. That means you're a 3. You will always be a 3. It is like it's your dominant type. But if you have a 2-wing, you begin to pick up some of the characteristic features of that number, right? Some of the strengths and maybe even a few of the weaknesses of that type, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, and you really have a dominant wing, but that doesn't mean your other wing doesn't affect you, right? I oftentimes tell people that, if you see a bird with one wing, it just flies in circles, right? So you have 2 wings. It's just that one is dominant. Okay. So I'll describe 3s with 2s, and I'll describe 3s with 4s, and you tell me which one sounds more like you. Okay. So first of all, the 3, they have an unconscious motivation that kind of drives their behaviors.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And it's unconscious. It's not like you know it until you start doing some work with the Enneagram. So for a 3, it's a need to succeed, a need to appear successful, and to avoid failure at all costs. So let's start there. Does that sound like you?
Yeah, but I feel like I've gotten comfortable. Okay, so here's a question. If I've gotten, is it possible, if that's kind of my natural state, but is it possible through growth and experience that failure slowly becomes more comfortable to you? Like, I don't aim, like, I'm very much like, let's make sure we're poking holes in things to avoid failure at all costs. And I take failure like in a way that is not fun. Like I struggle with it at first, but I've also kind of come to realize the beauty of it as well. And so there's this, I feel like my brain sometimes wrestles with itself. So I think so, as long as, I guess I look at it like, I think I've grown through that a lot because I'm not as terrified of it. I just don't enjoy it.
Well, I don't get a big thrill out of it either, but and I have to face it several times a day. So, all right. So was that more true of you at 21?
Probably, yes.
Okay, right. And so I oftentimes tell people, think back to when you were 21, when you had very little self-awareness.
Okay.
And this stuff was just operating right underneath the surface. And you didn't know this motivation was driving the way that you act, think, and feel. But with experience, perhaps some of the featured traits of the 3 begin to soften a little bit.
Yes, that's exactly it. That's great. Perfect.
Okay. All right. So a 3 with a 2 wing, right, is a little more extroverted than a 3 with a 4 wing, right? Maybe measurably more extroverted. They really seek out opportunities to shine in the world. They don't often volunteer personal information or feelings. They can often be personable, but not personal. Okay. And they do care about what others think about them more than the 3 with a 4 wing. Okay. So now I'll just quickly describe it. These are very quick descriptions. They could be quite a bit longer, if, we were to go into it that way. So compared to a 3 with a 2, a 3 with a 4 wing is more introverted. They're less concerned about what others think of them. And they're more self-reflective. They're more in touch with their feelings. They're more subdued. They require more time for reflection, like being alone and reflecting. They feel that their value comes from true achievement than appearance, right? Which is not like a 3 with a 2 wing. And it's a very complicated combination because the 3 has a tendency at times to have this chameleon-like ability to change their presentation, right? Swapping masks in order to win the admiration of the group or of others, right? Okay. So they can be really great at work in a room, right? They can go from talking to this person and actually kind of mirroring what they feel that person wants from them in terms of their identity, their presentation. So the 4, on the other hand, is really concerned with authenticity. So when your 4 wing observes your 3 core type, right, playing the mask changing game, right, it kind of goes like this at it, right? It kind of goes, so for example, I'm a 4 with a 3 wing. And I oftentimes tell people when I walk off a stage from speaking somewhere, oftentimes my little 3 wing, my four core type will look at the 3 and go, oh, you're so full of it. You just weren't all that authentic out there. You did your spoots, you were like up there doing your thing, man. And then my 3 is looking at my 4 saying, yeah, but this is how we make a living. You know what I mean?
Right.
So tell me, 3 with 2, 3 with 4, which one sounds more like you?
My gut says the 4, even though I definitely, like when you said the 2 really seeks out opportunities and whatnot, I definitely seek out opportunities, but tell me if this helps affirm what I'm thinking with the 4.
Mm-hmm.
I am such a homebody and I hate having appointments. Like I would rather like sit in my office and create things all day that I can put out into the world that will make me successful rather than feeling like I speak quite a bit as well. And I like it, but it's not my favorite thing that I do. I like to go into my hole and be creative and then like emerge and then make dinner and like be home. And so I prefer, I get re-energized by being alone. Even at Thanksgiving dinner after 4 hours of family time, sometimes I just have to go hide out downstairs and come back after 30 minutes because I need to kind of reset. So that sounds to me a little bit more like the 4, and especially the piece about authenticity. I agree. Like, that's why I always struggle with, am I really a 3? Because there's this huge part of me that's like, don't ever project something that isn't authentic. Yet there's this piece of me that's like, but I understand I've got to work a room and I'm a relationship builder. So I think that combination sounds way more aligned than what you were describing with the 2.
Right. Okay, good. Okay, check.
Whoa. I feel like a woman.
Yeah, we just checked it off. Now, if you get a chance and you have a desire to know more about the Enneagram, there's a lot more. I just did a very basic description. There's a whole lot more to know about wings, right? In terms of the description of them and stuff. So we're going to talk about your book. We're going to get to that. But first, I'm going to play my therapist role, right? Great. Because that's what I kind of do. Tell me about your childhood.
Ooh, that's a good question. Well, what do you want to know? Like my entire childhood or just what my living environment was like? What do you mean? Okay.
You can give me a thumbnail sketch and maybe talk a little bit about relationship with parents and siblings, if there was any sort of trauma there that you're willing to talk about.
Yeah.
I'm real fascinated about that stuff and personality.
Sure. Well, I think this will help make maybe some of me make sense. So I was raised, I was the oldest child. Mm-hmm. I always say that I have oldest child syndrome because I always have to do things right. And I have a younger brother. And so we're about 3 years apart, grew up with him. And then my parents were married and both my parents were entrepreneurs. And so I learned a lot about, and they were always teaching us about investments and different, ways to be creative financially and the 3 ways to create wealth. And so I felt like I learned a lot about that as a child, and it really kind of drove my entrepreneurial creative spirit. And my mom stayed home with us. My dad traveled quite a bit. He owned a commercial construction company. And so he would go on job sites quite often. And I grew up playing sports. I was very competitive. I would foul out of every basketball game that I ever played, it seemed like. And it was interesting because I was on offense. I was the 3-point shooter and I would, rack up the points. But on defense, even though I'm short, I would have to play like defense on the posts who were towering over me because I was so aggressive. I would box him out and take him out at the knees and get the rebound. So they called me Armadillo. I don't know why. That's what my high school coach called. Armadillo. Complimentary thing to call a young girl, but thank you.
That Armadillo.
That left a bruise.
Yeah, it did. It's really affected my adulthood. No, but yeah, so that was kind of a joke, but just because I was competitive like that. And grew up doing that and, would work inside my parents' small businesses. At one point they had a gumball machine business on the side with a bunch of friends of theirs. So my first job was going with my mom and servicing the gumball machines at Great Clips and places like that. I was very much a straight A type student, competitive on this, whatever sport I was playing. So I didn't like to do sports that I would fail at. So that's where that comes in.
Okay. That's really big.
There you go.
That's really big. That is very 3. Mm-hmm. If you were an 8 challenger, that wouldn't be the case.
Okay.
But as a 3, because 3s are more concerned about their appearance, right? It's hard for them to do stuff where there's a high possibility of public embarrassment or the appearance of incompetency at whatever they're doing in the public sphere. Anthony, what if I told you you could get high quality, organic, and non-GMO groceries delivered to your door for a lot less than you're paying now and help out families in need?
No.
Mm-hmm.
Really?
Let me tell you,
That's what I'm doing since I discovered Thrive Market. As a proud Thrive Market member, I get the products I love, and my paid membership provides a free membership for one low-income family.
Oh, now I like this.
Right? And let me tell you this.
Okay.
I've ordered off their website, which, by the way, is very user-friendly. It's not at all like one of those websites where you feel like you just fell into some kind of terrible labyrinth. They have the best selection of high-quality, healthy, and sustainable products online. A couple of things I love. They have Jackson's Honest Sweet Potato Chips. Have you ever jammed on those before?
I have not.
Well, you're welcome.
All right.
Jackson's Honest Sweet Potato Chips I got at Thrive Market. And
Yes,
I used to be a Go Lean cereal guy. Remember that?
I know this. Yes.
And that's because I'm so healthy. But now I eat organic coconut flakes cereal from Thrive Market.
Ooh, I can't wait to try that.
It is changing my whole life. As a special offer for Typology listeners, join Thrive Market today to get 25% off your first order and an exclusive free gift. The only way to get this offer is by going to thrivemarket.com/typology. That's THRIVE market.com/TYPOLOGY to get the exclusive offer of 25% off your first order and
Yes.
a free gift.
Nice.
You can't get this offer anywhere else. Go to thrivemarket.com/typology.
What was your relationship with your parents like?
Really good overall. One thing that I think I noticed later in adulthood that came out, and they were teaching me the importance of your reputation. Like, you can make more money back if you lose money and things like that. But they always emphasize, like, it's harder to fix your reputation or to heal your reputation than it is to, if you lose money on a deal or something. So we always talked about that. And it was a really good principle. And I think they taught me that really well. My parents were big hosts. They would often host, gatherings and holidays. And when we had the ability to, instead of putting, extra bonus money into extra, things, they often put it into experiences. So we traveled a lot as a family. I went to Italy and different places around the world as a child and as a teenager. And so anyways, but the reputation thing, I think, especially as a 3, like, my brother didn't affect him at all. I think for me, I was like, oh my gosh, my reputation matters more than anything. And I think I really internalized that, although it was a really great principle. So, but overall, I mean, I have a great relationship with my parents to this day. We actually are living in their basement right now because
You've got that great white background there, which tells me, I was wondering if maybe you were in a prison in North Korea, but now it all makes sense.
Yes. So yeah, we are building a new house right now. So they took us in for about a month and a half, which is really nice. So, but we have a great relationship with them overall. I've never really had a whole lot of, as any family does, there's always now and then conflict, but it's never anything that's lasted.
Right.
We play a lot of games and have a lot of fun and laugh a lot as a family. It's kind of how I've always seen it. And my mom and I have a very open relationship. My mom's very deep, and she's a deep thinker like I am. I think I've diagnosed her as a 2 based off my little knowledge of the Enneagram, but she and I, like, she's probably the only, she knows things that most people's moms, I feel like, shouldn't probably know about their lives. Like, I just talk about everything and anything to her. So we have a really good relationship there. So yeah, I think that was really grounded in childhood. But my mom was raised by, my grandmother was from Mexico. So because my grandmother was from Mexico, the Latin culture is very close. Mother-daughter is usually very close a lot of times. And so my mom was one of 4 boys, the youngest, and my grandmother lost her husband when my mom was only 2 years old. So she and my mom became very, very close because her older brothers went off and moved and she stayed local. And so they had a really tight-knit relationship. And so my mom and I have in many ways followed suit, but we are very different personality wise. And so we've had to have conversations about, like, okay, this is how you and Nana's relationship was, but it's going to look different from our relationship because we're different than you guys were. So we've had to have conversations about expectations and what that looks like. But I would say overall, we have a very healthy communication and relationship. And I think that was really rooted in childhood and spending a lot of time together.
So your mom, if she is a 2, is a big time feeler.
Yes.
And probably her feelings can be overwhelming at times because it's just feeling. It's the most interpersonal number on the Enneagram. They're huggers usually, you know what I mean? Or oftentimes, it just sort of depends on what subtype of 2. They are very affectionate, tactile. They're, people who love to meet the needs of other people.
Yes.
Sometimes, they go overboard meeting the needs of other people, right?
And they feel underappreciated, right?
Oh yeah. And when that happens, they'll, at their worst, they'll go into this kind of martyr space where it's like, I do everything for all these people. And when I have needs, they don't come to my aid. You know what I mean? So they can get resentful at their worst that other people aren't able to psychically determine what they need and meet those needs. You know, it's like, you're always having to tell a 2, how do I know what you need if you don't tell me?
Right.
And the 2 doesn't understand that because they actually can psychically figure out what everyone else needs and take care of them.
Or they think to ask. This is something I've noticed not only like with multiple relationships that I'm in that I think are either 2s or they've told me they're 2s, where they think to ask because that's like they identify, they need to be asked what they need, or I can identify what they need. So then I think what can happen is they say, well, why don't you ask me what I need? And it's like, well, my brain doesn't automatically go to that. It's not that I don't care. It's just not my first thought. Whereas that personality type is often one asking, what do you need? How can I help? What can I do? And they want to be asked they want to be reciprocated in the same way.
Well, and for some 3s, when people have needs around them, they get impatient because they're like, I have stuff to do. Like I'm really, look at you, you're laughing. I'm really busy and I'd prefer it if you left your personal life at home. You know what I mean? It's like, because your needs and all these feelings you're having are slowing me down. And I have a list of to-dos that have to get done today. And so let's put off this conversation until later when I have more space. And unfortunately, a not very self-aware 3 will never get around to circling back because the moment they have free time, they automatically put another project in front of themselves. Right. Because empty space here where the project lives is it's unsettling to the 3. Yeah. Yep. Does that sound?
Yes.
Okay. So tell me about a time in your life when you failed and how you rebounded.
Oh, okay. You're getting deep here. I'm going to try not to cry, but I would say it's hard to call this a failure because I think any good therapist would say like, this isn't your fault. It's not a failure. That's your fault. But I lost 2 pregnancies this last year. So this is like way other end of the spectrum. And that has been I don't think I've rebounded, honestly. I think I'm in rebound mode. Like I'm seeking out therapy and but it's a really hard, complex thing for me to wrap my head around because I've started to realize pregnancy and like carrying a pregnancy is not something I can just achieve like anything else. Like I had the plan of like in between book 1 and 2, we'll have 1 baby. After book 2, we'll have baby. Like now that's all jacked up. And this year just kind of went to hell in a handbasket. Honestly, it felt like. And so I, have really wrestled with that because it's been something that feels it makes me feel like I'm so out of control. And so how I've responded was first total panic mode. I feel like I self-destructed a little bit. Like I went into a very dark place, did not have any, and it was weird. I didn't have motivation for the first time. Granted, there's an element of grief and heartbreak and other things, but then I really wrestled with this, like, what's wrong with my body? Ever since I was 10 years old, I've worked out, I've checked all the boxes, I've been married a few years. Like I tried to do everything in the right order. Right. And I'm like, why did I do that? It just, clearly isn't working. And people who don't try to be as disciplined as I've been up until this point in my life are carrying babies just fine. So what's wrong with me? So there's been this complex wrestling of almost a sense of why is my body failing? Like, sure, I didn't cognitively do anything wrong, but there's still that element of, I feel like the black sheep of my friend group because they all have 104 children and no problem and, have home births and that's it. And I'm like over here getting tested, trying to figure out what's going on with me. So that would be a deeper area that has really, I can cognitively talk about it, no problem. But then I also, when I start reliving the traumas of surgeries I've had to go through and other things, that like really breaks me. So it's, a little bit of a complex thing because it is a really weird situation. And my rebound has been, like I said, kind of self-destructed, went into, I don't care. I don't have motivation for anything. Then it went into, I have to turn my pain into action. And so since the first one was in January, the second one was in June. And the second one was much further along. Like I carried up till the second trimester. So it was just shocking. And a much more it was a much longer recovery and whatnot. So I was like, I'm never going through that again. That was awful. And I think obviously I can't control that, but I wanted to take time. I thought, okay, I'm going to do it. I'm going to take this pain and turn it into action. So I started all this testing. I swapped out all my products. I changed my diet and all those things I found out like were good to do. I needed to do because I did have some things in like inflammation in my body and whatnot. But I kind of went into total action mode. And even my husband's like, I'm really proud of the efforts you're making, but I also feel like you're kind of under the illusion of control. Like if you just do these things, like that's why you were so upset when this didn't work out the first 2 times, because you're like, what the heck? I just did all these things and I've taken care of my body as well as I knew how up until this point. So why is this, it feels like a failure. So I don't know if that is helpful, but that is definitely a scenario.
It is. And let me just begin by saying I'm really, really sorry. I think that, miscarriages are maybe the most underrated source of grief. It's almost like a lot of people feel like, well, you never met the baby. It's like, well, and it's sort of like, let's not talk about it because you're going to get over that really fast. You know what I mean? And it's like, no, it's much more serious than that.
I used to think that until this year. I used to think like, well, it wasn't meant to be, or it wasn't really like a baby there, but the first one was, I kind of describe it like this to people who are not used to this or never gone through it, or who are where I was a year ago when I didn't think that this was really that big of a deal. The first time it happened, it was a little bit earlier and I was heartbroken and sad and just felt really confused. You feel like you're like, what? And you are grieving, but you're hopeful. You're like, okay, that's probably not going to happen again. When it happens again and you're further along, like it sent me into a tailspin of despair. On top of, I saw arms, legs kicking, strong heartbeat. Like I saw what looked like a little baby too. So there's this whole element of like, how did death occur in my body, but I'm still alive? That's a really weird, deep thing that no one really walks you through. Like it's a type of grief where there's physical pain and emotional pain that coincide in unlike some other things. And that doesn't make it harder or easier. It's just helping people understand. I try to walk them through that because it really does seem to strip away your femininity. It makes, there's a lot of complex emotions to it on top of the loss of a child or a child that a future that you anticipated. So there's many elements to it. And I appreciate you validating that because I think it's natural if it's not something you've experienced and you never saw the evidence of that life. It's so easy to go, well, you'll get over that quickly and you can try again. You'll have another chance. I'm like, okay, but this isn't like batting. This isn't like going up to bat and not striking out. This is a human life we're talking about here. This is a family. So yeah, I appreciate you saying that.
Hey, Anthony.
Hey, Ian.
My kids are grown, but you still have a couple at home, right?
I still have a few at home.
Well, let me tell you about this company who makes engaging products for kids of all ages.
All right.
KiwiCo creates super cool hands-on projects for kids of all ages designed to make learning about STEAM, that's an acronym, by the way, for science, technology, engineering, art, and math, designed to make learning fun.
Ooh, I love this.
Each crate is designed by experts and tested by kids, offering fun opportunities to learn and explore at home. KiwiCo covers a wide range of subjects from science to art to geography, and each line caters to different age groups. For instance, my assistant has 2 young boys, 7 and 9, and they received a science crate, which included all the materials and learning resources to build a mechanical model of the sun, the earth, and moon, and they designed their own constellations and made a light-up lantern.
I love this.
And they loved it. With KiwiCo's hands-on art and science projects, kids can engineer a walking robot, design a paint pendulum, conduct bubbling, chemistry experiments, and more.
This sounds like something you and I could have fun with.
Totally. And just for our Typology listeners, get 30% off your first month plus free shipping on any crate line with the code Typology. That's 30% off your first month at KiwiCo. That's KIWICO.com. Promo code Typology, TYPOLOGY.
It sounds like, by the way, that not to in any way sort of, okay, let's take an opportunity to talk about threes because of your miscarriage, right? But it sounds to me like your husband is really, really smart.
Yeah.
And I bet he's not a 3, right?
I'm pretty sure he's a 9 with a wing 8 because he's definitely got some challenger in him too. But I think very much he's the calm in the storm. I'm like, why aren't you crying? Why aren't you freaking out? Why aren't you trying to fix this? He's like, because we don't ultimately have control. I'm like, do something, so we are very, we balance each other that way and we drive each other crazy that way too.
Sure. But he had a really good insight, right? Which is that you're trying to exercise control in a situation where you have none. Mm-hmm. Where you're really powerless. And that would be hard for a 3. And it's interesting what you said that I turned pain into action. Mm-hmm. Which is something 3s are, mm-hmm. and 8s, but particularly 3s are the most doing centered type on the Enneagram. It's do, right? I feel first. I don't do first. Mm-hmm. Your mom feels first, mm-hmm. right? Mm-hmm. And your instinct is to do first, mm-hmm. right? And that can be a good thing, mm-hmm. right? Turning pain into action can be a good thing, mm-hmm. unless bypasses the opportunity for growth, like being able to say, I can't do anything, mm-hmm. and I hate that. Mm-hmm. And by the way, I have to feel grief, mm-hmm. which nobody likes, but would be particularly hard for a 3.
Yeah.
Right. Because you want to move on. Like your reflexes move on. And it's mm-hmm. like, but I can't. Mm-hmm. Yep. It just hurts too much.
Yeah. Yeah.
And there's, in a way, that's how the Enneagram can help in real time. Because it's like, once I know myself, I can sort of in a situation like that realize, okay, because of my sort of interior architecture, the way I'm responding right now isn't healthy. Does that make sense? It's understandable. Okay. Right. I'm not saying it's not understandable, and I'm not saying it's bad.
Right.
I'm just saying my normal default behaviors are not working in my best interest in this situation. Mm-hmm. You know? Yeah. And if you know what the default is, it's like all this kind of self-understanding and self-friendship and compassion and self-empathy mm-hmm. can really rise to the surface, and support you. So listen to your husband, because he sounds like a really smart guy. He gave you really good advice that probably pissed you off.
Oh, it's up and down. It's like I need that, and I acknowledge that I need that. But then there's other times where I'm like, yes, but, and I think this is where I struggle, probably as a 3 and also as a bereaved mom. But I think in scenarios where it's like, whoa, this is so out of my control, and there's an element of pain, and there's an element of fear of the future now because there's this weird in between where I often ask myself the question, okay, what's the line? Because I'm not going to sit here and go, if I got tests done and I was able to find out 2 or 3 things that I do need to support, and I should be taking action to do things to optimize my next opportunity. Right. And so I look at it like, shouldn't I do the things that are within my control, which I think is healthy. But then I think what can become unhealthy is I begin to grasp for control as a whole. And so it's like, how do you do the things within your control without falling under the illusion that you're in control? Does that make sense? Like taking action on the things we can, and then leaving the result up to, it becomes this very complex thing, because it's like, but if I do all the things I can, that in my brain merits, therefore it should work out. Right. So it's like, I don't know how to, even though I cognitively could have this conversation and say, no, that's not necessarily the case. My default is, it kind of subconsciously begins to lean into that. Like, if I just check these boxes, I will have peace of mind knowing I did everything I can. Knowing myself, I will probably feel, if something were to go wrong again, even more let down because I put in so much more effort. So it's like, what's the line? How do you navigate, whether it's this situation or something else? It's I think that's the constant battle of, especially as a 3, it's like, I want to take action on the things I can control without falling into that camp that's unhealthy of I'm in control, because that's obviously we fall into that illusion, but it can get really slippery really fast. And so that's something that I wrestle with often. Yeah,
it's muddy territory. That said, one of, every number on the Enneagram, and I've never really gone into this teaching so much, but it's a big piece of the Enneagram, which is all of us forget something as little people, right? Or it's possible we disown it, but usually there's some idea that we forget. And one of the ideas, or the idea that threes tend to forget, is that everything's gonna get done. They feel like it's up to them to get everything done, right? And it's like, if I don't do it, it's never gonna get done. You know, if I don't have control, if I don't take care of it, if I don't go into action, if I don't do it. And so what they have to develop is trust that it's all going to get done. And it might not get done by me, you know, which is sort of having to let go of control. It's like taking a breath and going, yeah, it's going to get done. The universe is going to take care of this. You know what I mean? And I'll do my part, but I can't do the whole thing, you know? And so that's, I really appreciate you know, sort of sharing that perspective. And all of us struggle with the illusion of control. All of us. I don't care what your type is, right? All of us do. But I think certain types probably wrestle with it more than others. I think ones wrestle with it more than others.
Sure,
I think threes do. I think eights do. But, you know, in some ways, all of our types are a way of trying to be in control.
Such a good point.
We try to control people with the suite of behaviors that go with our type. You know what I mean? In fact, we train people to respond to us and interact with us in a certain way based on our type, right? I try to elicit certain things from people using the gifts or maybe the curses of my type. In ways oftentimes that are not good. You know what I mean? Like they actually are not serving me anymore. They may have worked for me as a kid to control the environment, right? Or to get what we needed. But later in life, you know, not so great, right? Not so great.
Hey everybody, one of the lessons I've learned over the years is that not everybody benefits from a traditional 50-minute counseling session. And this is why some people can go to couples therapy or personal counseling for a long time and never really get anywhere. This is why I'm such a believer of intensive counseling and my friends at Restoring the Soul in Colorado, created by my longtime friend Michael Cusick to help couples or individuals experience deep change in half-day blocks over 1 or 2 weeks. Now listen, if you can't wait months or years to get to the bottom of an issue or to experience breakthrough, you need to get in touch with my friend Michael and his extraordinary team of counselors at Restoring the Soul. If you're looking to get out of the rut you're in, but can't wait months or years, call Restoring the Soul today for a free consultation with Michael's staff. Call 303-932-9777 and learn how their intensive counseling process can help you. As a special bonus, just for Typology listeners, make sure to visit www.restoringthesoul.com/typology to download their PDF called 5 Ways Unaddressed Trauma May Be Derailing Your Relationships.
Okay, so tell me about your book.
Well, the book I felt like I wrote to myself. So one thing I've noticed that comes with my personality type, which as we're talking about is clearly fits into this 3, is 2 things. One, I have a need to achieve, which can run me into the ground. And also I tend to have a hard time, well, especially up until recently, I feel like I've grown through this a lot, but my natural state is I want to do everything all at the same time. And so I essentially wrote a book speaking into this because as I opened up about it more, even with different personality types, I think in our world, a lot of times it's not that we have a lack of opportunities, it's that we have an endless list of options. And what I began to notice was a lot of people would reach out to me as I spoke on clarity I was getting, or, you know, things that I was working on, or how I was eliminating things to simplify my life, or just different pieces. And this has become an even deeper adventure through loss and everything else. But as I was talking a lot about this concept of purpose and kind of being multi-passionate, multi-interested, I noticed there's a lot of books on shelves that are motivational and encouraging and write about, like, you know, encouraging, especially young women, like, go after your dreams, do the thing, whatever. And I remember I'd read those books and my motivational side and my achiever side would be like, yeah, let's do it. And then my other side of my brain would go, well, which one? Because we have so many different ideas. And I know that there's a lot of people out there who will hear go after your dreams or step into your calling or however you want to say it and feel really discouraged because they're like, I don't even know what that is. I either have no ideas or no clarity, or I have a million different options and ideas, or I'm just feeling pulled in a lot of directions or completely directionless. And so I kind of wrote it from that angle, this idea of one, as somebody, I wrote about my experiences of, kind of the performer and noticing that in myself and having a hard time opening up about hard things. Now I've gotten much more comfortable with that, but my default state is, it's good, put it on, So, and so I talked about this pressure to prove and how a lot of times we want to prove like I'm successful or I've got it together, I'm okay, and I think every personality type, I'm sure, does it different ways. But the idea was overcome the pressure to prove and show up for what you were made to do. And the argument, the whole point that I try to make in Own Your Everyday is we've made purpose and our calling and our dream, like our purpose to be something we have to go find. Like when we say I need to find my purpose, we go out there, we're treating it this thing. And I had this realization of maybe it's actually not something I need to find and grab hold of and do. Maybe it's already like hardwired into me, and there's just different pathways in which I can carry it out that will vary per season. So I kind of explore that concept in the book. And the idea is just, we all want to do big, amazing things with our lives, right? We all want our lives to count, but it really starts in showing up for the small everyday things before we can prove anything to anyone. And it was more written as I'm learning this alongside of you because this is my core challenge every day. And so, yeah, it was meant to be like a take the pressure off and let's redefine this idea of purpose. So that's what Own Your Everyday is all about.
Did you write this book after your miscarriages?
No, but I have a follow-up.
Wow. Like a good 3 would have. I mean, yeah. It's the reason I asked is, when we have trauma and we have resilience, right? And some people have more resilience than others, right? Threes tend to be very resilient, okay, and adaptive. So I would say when you have one of those moments in life where you hit a wall and you're like a pair of sneakers in the dryer, just bouncing around and you just in a circle, right? Yeah. It can bring a lot of clarity to what matters most in life.
This is literally what my second book is about. It's like I started it with the first one and then
I want 10%. Yeah. So that's your next book.
So yeah, that's kind of the concept we're writing. It's all about redefining success. So this, Own Your Everyday was kind of exploring this idea of how do I figure out my purpose and what I'm supposed to do with my life. And it was kind of from this, it was this permission slip, like, hey, take the pressure off. I've realized you're not going to figure it out overnight. It's kind of the foundational piece of that book. The second book is now being written after this experience. And the way I describe it is really, I felt like I just kept running into disappointment after disappointment, heartbreak after heartbreak, no matter what I did. So it's this idea of like, how do we redefine success when our dreams just keep getting met with disappointment? And that's kind of the concept I'm exploring. And it really is, my last year has been a year of focus. It's a year of clarity. We're not passion hopping anymore. We're getting really, serious about a few things and doing them well. And, for example, something we just did in our life was we sold our house because we lived on 3 acres. We had a lot of yard to maintain. We're trying to build our multiple businesses we run, and we decided, how can we simplify? How can we make our life, this isn't a priority anymore. It sounded like a really fun idea 2 years ago. It's not anymore. It's a stressor. So how do we eliminate stressors? And so we sold our house and we built a simpler, smaller, home that we're about to move into. So, it's been a year of reevaluating priorities, taking some massive action to really live aligned with those priorities and to focus on the few things we want to focus on. So that's really kind of what I explore and unpack in this next book, especially for the achiever type and the high achiever that is, learning to redefine what is success, what ultimately matters most, because hardship can really bring clarity and disappointment can really bring clarity.
Yeah. Wow. So the name of your book is Own Your Everyday, Overcome the Pressure to Prove and Show Up for What You Were Made to Do. It's a great title. And I want everybody to go out and buy that book. Own Your Everyday, Overcome the Pressure to Prove and Show Up for What You Were Made to Do by Jordan Lee Dooley. We want to make sure that everybody knows about it and tell everyone where they can find out more about all the stuff you're doing.
Well, you can come follow all of our fun adventures and craziness. I'm on Instagram at Jordan Lee Dooley, as well as everywhere else on social media, the same, Jordan Lee Dooley. Everyone says I have kind of like a Dr. Seuss name because it rhymes.
Oh, man. Well, we are so glad you came on. We'll have you on again when you get that next book out in the hopper and it hits the streets. And listen, all the best to you and all the wonderful things you're doing in the world.
Thank you.
As I like to do, Anthony, now, instead of saying be yourself, everybody else is already taken, I close with this benediction, which is, may you have love, may you have joy, may you have peace, may you have healing, may you have rest. Until next time.